One side argues overcrowded, outdated schools are in need of replacement, not repair.
Empirically, we believe that Bryant is in the kind of a condition, by virtue of its age and design, where replacement is the smarter and more economical thing to do.
The other is concerned about an increase in taxes with a $13.5 million referendum.
I think I've done my part. I'm willing to continue paying the taxes, but I do not want to pay any additional taxes.
Pomeroy is running for school board primarily to oppose this referendum. Meanwhile, another group is campaigning hard to pass it. They feel the odds are on their side.
What's happening now, I think, that hasn't happened in the past, is people are beginning to understand the needs of our children.
As it gets down to the wire, both sides say they will continue to campaign for their cause, but the ultimate decision will be up to the voters April 6th. In Superior, Janine Johnson, News 6.
The Duluth School District is facing a budget shortfall of over $4 million. This week, the superintendent carefully outlined the problem through a cable TV hookup. He says the deficit must be solved and teachers must play a role. School board member Tony Stauber agrees.
I'll be very honest with you. 85% of our costs come from salaries and staff, and we are going to have to look at programs. I think it's going to be a flip. As soon as we're through with schools, we're going to have to look at programs and where we can conserve there.
Board member Mark Johnson says budget cutting is never easy, but it must be done.
And we can no longer avoid making decisions, and it's not going to make everybody happy, but we're also responsible for getting this thing back online.
But Duluth Teachers Federation President Frank Warner says the union has been warning the administration and board of a serious budget problem for years, but nothing's been done.
We feel it's especially inappropriate then to come back to us and say, gee, we've made some terrible mistakes in dealing with our budget problems. Now you solve those budget problems by having reductions in salary or reductions in force.
Warner says that's not the way it should work, and that's not the way it's going to work. He says Duluth teachers' salaries and benefits are comparable to other similarly sized districts, and they can't be expected to just roll over. The teachers' union will submit its preliminary contract demands this Monday. Negotiations begin very soon, but it looks like it could be a long time before there's any agreement reached. At the Duluth Central Administration Building, Barbara Riles, News 6.
The climate that has led to the violence in Florida and the threats of violence in Duluth, which we have clearly had, and also elsewhere, is everybody's responsibility.
The Sundew left her dock bright and early this morning, planning a full day of ice breaking. She found her task quite easy for the most part, as the ice in the majority of the harbor was not very thick.
It's been a fairly mild winter, and the ice conditions are fairly light, similar to what they were last year.
At its thickest, the ice was 18 to 20 inches, but most of what the Sundew broke up was only 8 to 10 inches thick. Still, breaking ice can be tricky.
When we get underway, the ice can tend to move the ship around that we don't exactly plan on. We have to be ready for whatever movement might move us around.
At its thickest, the ice did pose some problems. The Sundew's crew was forced to use the back-up and ram maneuver.
Rudder midship. We're doing that right now, and the ship is rocking back and forth quite violently as our helmsman sallies the rudder left and right to keep the ship in a rocking motion.
Today was spent in the harbor breaking enough ice in the shipping channels so that commercial tugs should have no trouble helping vessels get going as their orders come in. At this point, there's no real ice on the lake, but that could change in a matter of minutes.
There's still a possibility, even with a little bit of ice that's out on the lake, that if we get a bad nor'easter and all the ice blows down to the Duluth end of the lake, it could stack up to the point where it would slow commerce down. And
if that happens, the Sundew will do what it can to ensure smooth sailing in and out of the Twin Ports. Barbara Riles, News 6.
Mr. Nolenberger, when the committee on Washington gets going, I hope they look at the feasibility of the cost of operating that huge building and the possibility of giving it the ball and building another one, because it might be cheaper to knock it down and start over.
Present this grant of $5,000 to John Sanford on behalf of the Rural Access Committee.
A little over a year ago. At this time, we see the departure of the Rural Access Clinic from Cromwell as a gradual process. Everyone must understand that the clinic will eventually leave Cromwell, but we will not leave until a long-term plan has been developed. We anticipate that to occur sometime near the end of 1993.
It's not as quick to develop. Here is 2 loose and mom or they 0.4 size, yeah? What that means is called convection versus.
The biggest goal for what they'll get today is that they'll go home with a better understanding and a better appreciation for the river. And that is stewardship, and that is environmental education. We provide opportunities to bring the students down to the river, and that will be reinforced in what they learn here today.
Sometimes one, and very rarely two, is you bear your derriere to the elements. You move the universe, as they say. Yeah? Well, that's cold. When that air hits your derriere, it's going to be cold, yeah? Well, if you
The drums that were videotaped and removed from Lake Superior last summer were 55-gallon barrels. The investigation revealed they contained scrap metals used by the Army before World War II in the making of mini-bombs. Army Corps spokespeople say just over 1,400 55-gallon barrels were disposed of in Lake Superior off the Knife and Talmadge rivers between 1959 and 1962. But Duluth truck driver Bud Ben Gilder says he too brought in barrels to be deep sixed, but those he hauled were much smaller.
They're about 15-gallon cans, and on the top of the cans there was concrete so that the stuff couldn't be taken out or dropped out. There was holes punched in the sides of the barrel, apparently with a pick.
Van Gilder drove for Glendenning Trucking at the time. He says he delivered 3 truckloads containing almost 1,000 of the 15-gallon barrels here to the Army Corps of Engineers dock in Duluth. He says the barrels were accompanied at all times by an armed Army officer.
He wouldn't let the barrels out of his sight. Once the trailer was open and that, he was right there while we unloaded them, and he stayed right there by the barge while I went to get the other 2 trailers.
Army Corps spokespeople say it's very possible that the Army did dispose of other barrels in Lake Superior at about the same time as the 55-gallon drum operation was carried out. They say the military may have felt it was a good way to get rid of all kinds of confidential materials. Corps spokesmen say they plan to question Van Gilder about this operation. No firm date has been set for the Lake Superior search this summer, but the Corps will hold a news conference in April once the search dates are firm. In Duluth, Barbara Riles, News 6.
Across the board support, and it seemed to have passed through rather quickly. This will be carving brand new legal grounds in that minority status has historically been based upon who a person is, and now we are being asked to create a minority status based on behavior.
For weeks, deep inside the Forest Service headquarters, staffers have been poring through mounds of letters, organizing, highlighting, and analyzing public comment on the new BWCA management plan.
Everybody wrote with a deep care and concern and had comments on how we should be managing the BWCA. But also at the same time, I can tell you that there was not a lot of tolerance for somebody else's point of view. You know, comments about greenies, comments about fat motorboaters.
The comments go into a computer for inventory and analysis. A team of Forest Service experts will now begin formulating a final plan.
We'll be looking at how people tell us some decision might affect their particular user group, and using that, the public involvement that we've had, and also the research that we've collected, the field data that we've collected, knowledge from people who are actually out in the field, and then we'll be making a recommendation to the forest supervisor.
The suggestions drawing the most heat are proposals to cut BWCA party sizes from 10 to 6 and plans to reduce permits at some entry points. Congressman Jim Oberstar says the moves will hurt businesses.
So I'm very hopeful that the Forest Service will go back and review this plan, make it more tailored to the particular needs of campsites rather than a blanket rule for the whole Boundary Waters canoe area. I'm going to be making a very strong appeal to the Forest Service on that issue.
Oberstar has already met with regional and national officials in his lobbying effort, but the Forest Service says the decision will be made here in Duluth. The final management plan won't be released until July. It goes into effect in 1994. That gives everyone a chance for legal action. Stay tuned. At Forest Service headquarters in Duluth, Dave Jench, News 6.
Officials are looking at a number of possibilities of how to breathe new life into the former Washington Junior High School. They're considering such options as using the building for artist workspace, community education classes, and neighborhood programs. They're also looking at ways to utilize the school's pool, kitchen, and auditorium. Duluth City Councilor Chris Dahlberg is supportive of the project. He says saving Washington from the wrecking ball now may save money in the long run.
One thing is that I think people are getting sick and tired about seeing these beautiful old buildings torn down when they can be used, and then building new ones that are more expensive. I think if you can use them still, use them and save the taxpayers' dollars.
So that's
The male and female leopards lay quietly in separate cages today. There is a runway between the cages that will eventually allow the animals to interact, but for now, they're just getting used to each other. Zoo officials say the snow leopards are probably still feeling some of the effects of the sedation under which they were brought to the Duluth Zoo, but by Saturday, when they're allowed outside, they say they should be up and running. Since snow leopards are an endangered species, the zoo hopes these animals will mate, thereby increasing the numbers of snow leopards in the world.
Zoos acquire rare and endangered animals that are unrelated, and they agree to use their animals to propagate and to ensure the species' survival.
Eventually, they hope to return some of the endangered species to the wild. The Siberian exhibit is moving along, and construction is expected to be completed by the fall. Several new exhibits are already open, and several others are in progress. So far, the expansion project at the zoo has cost about $5 million. Zoo officials hope to garner that much again to complete their expansion plans. Those who are lobbying the legislature for the money say the new zoo already is and will continue to have a significant economic impact on the region. At the Duluth Zoo, Barbara Riles, News 6.
Kettle River has a population of 190 people. There are no restaurants, only one gas station, and no hotels. So as the faithful call for reservations for Easter weekend, they're filling every room in the area. One motel owner says his building was filled with one phone call.
They said it was a family get-together, and we didn't realize what was going on at the point. They're coming up by bus, a whole busload out of Wisconsin someplace.
They just didn't tell you which family.
Correct.
Several hotels in the region are approaching capacity on what is normally the slowest lodging weekend of the year. Accommodations within 50 miles will likely be filled by those making the pilgrimage, and they won't find many accommodations.
And this farm field isn't the best place for a gathering. It's muddy and wet, and the nearest restrooms are over 2 miles away. Not exactly a convention center.
But entrepreneurs are springing up around Kettle River, hoping to cash in on the crowds. This roadside food stand appeared overnight.
We've heard everything from not to expect anything to a lady came in and said that she was at the last kind of episode like this, and there were 74,000 people. So it goes from nothing up to the thousands.
Hundreds came to the field near the end of a narrow, muddy road last year. Similar events have drawn thousands, but no one is certain how many will be here April 11th, looking for a miracle. Near Kettle River, Derek Hines, News 6. Near Kettle River, Derek Hines for KARE 11 News. Near Kettle River, Minnesota, Derek Hines for NBC News.
One of the major other areas county spending.
I'm Dave Mann. I locate their businesses based on their personal income tax. We are in such a situation with regard to the leanness of our student average funding cost that another 4 to 6% cuts will leave us no alternative but to substantially reduce the number of instructional faculty.
Well, it would help our school districts, it would help our city and the counties to keep their property taxes down, and of course it would help our students.
made up of Superior students entertained the crowd at the Barker's Island Inn and whipped up the pride of Superior parents and others concerned. The rally was designed to encourage those in attendance to go out and spend the next 6 days spreading the word about the importance of passing the referendum.
We need better schools, we need more programming, we need just an improvement in the district all around.
The district's dream is to replace 3 elementary schools and expand Superior Senior High, and they say the plan will save money in the long run.
You know, that's what's so important to get out in this, that it will cost less to build new schools than it will to remodel old schools.
The message throughout the rally was that the effort to improve schools is all for the children, thus for the future, and the kids are helping to spread the word.
We need new schools because